What's up, my friends? This is Post-Production Pie, Editor-in-Chief for srlounge.com. Welcome to another installment of our weekly Ordinary to Extraordinary Raw Edit featuring the SR Lounge Lightroom preset system V5. That was a mouthful. Now, as always, we're going to be demonstrating how to create these effects using the preset system, and then we will be going through all the developed settings just to help everybody understand what's going on behind each look and effect. That way, whether you have the preset system or you don't, everybody can benefit. Now, if you are interested in learning more about the SR Lounge Lightroom preset system, just click the link below in the description. It'll take you right to the SR Lounge store. And now I am done talking. This tutorial's over. I'm just kidding, it's not over. Let's get started. In this video, we're going to create a nice black and white fade image using this image here that we have of our bride standing in front of these windows. We have this beautiful room here, and let's quickly go over the settings on how this was shot. This was taken on a Nikon D700. This was shot at 1/250th of a second at f4 ISO 200 on a 2470 f2.8. This was shot right around or close to 50 millimeters. We have this beautiful image. We have incredible sharpness, a very clean room, and this is kind of the perfect image for a black and white fade because it just lends itself so well to this look. So we're going to use this image for that black and white fade look. Now what we're going to do to start off is we're just going to test out the different fades. So we have a bright black and white fade, we have a neutral black and white fade, a punchy black and white fade, and a dark black and white fade. Now from looking at these, I can kind of feel like the bright black and white fade, well, when I start brightening it to the point that I want, it starts to get too bright. This isn't the right scene for this look. The neutral is nice, but we've just used neutral and I want to try something else. Now punchy, on the other hand, this vintage punchy black and white fade, it has this beautiful amount of contrast, a subtle drop in the highlight and in the shadows where it's clipping shadows, clipping highlights. Has a beautiful overall look to it, and I think that's what I'm going to go with. The dark fade we just did, plus it's a little bit too strong for the scene again too. By the time we brighten it, we get a lot of washed out details over here. So let's go back to this punchy fade. We're going to go with the punchy black and white fade. I need to bring my exposure back down right around 1.4, 1.5. This is where I dig it. I mean, we can go all the way down to say 1, and we get more of a silhouette effect at 1. We get a little more skin tone at 1.5. Maybe I'll go somewhere in between those, like 1.25 looks really nice. I feel like I don't really need to do too much to this image. It already looks awesome as it is. What I am going to do is just make a little adjustment to our crop. So let's go with 16:9 and let's see where we're at. All right, 16:9 might be a little bit too wide. Let's go 16:10 and kind of stretch it out on this side a little bit. I think that's about right where I want it. I want it 16:10. I just want to kind of crop out this little corner right here, so I want to bring that out. I want to crop out a little bit of the clutter in these lines up at the top, so I'm just going to pull it down a little bit. I also want to get these kind of things out of the left side too. So let's just pull it all the way into the branches on the tree. If we want, we can remove this with our spot healing. Okay, so this is looking solid. It looks much, much cleaner, tight, just a little bit tighter like this. But you know, one recommendation I have for people is that with these cameras that we're shooting, if you're shooting full RAW or even at 10 megapixels, don't feel like you have to nail the crop perfectly in camera, because oftentimes we'll be shooting actually full RAW just for this reason. We give ourselves a little bit of room because oftentimes we do want to just adjust that crop a tiny bit with one of these great images. So if you crop too tight in camera, you don't have that option, and it kind of limits what you can do in the post-production side. So not to say that you should shoot super wide on stuff, but don't feel like you have to crop in just right to the edge every single time. That's especially useful when you're going to print, because sometimes you're printing to crop size prints, and that way you don't see everything in the image. So if you give yourself a little bit of room, it's really great on that side to work with. That's really it. That's all I'm going to do with this image. I love just the way it comes out of the gate. Again, the base presets are finished presets. They have everything that we need. It's just optional if you want to modify it. But just for the sake of, well, for giggles, I don't use the first part of that phrase because it's not PC. All right, so just for the sake of giggles, let's go down to our antique black and white curves, and you can see that we chose a vintage punch. We can choose from any of these other vintage punches, and it'll correctly basically just modify only the curve each time. So brightness isn't going to be changed. We just get a little modification. So if we apply this azure, you can see that we get a little bit of this blue toning, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful with that blue toning as well as this standard silver. I'm going to leave it with that blue toning because I think it looks great. It adds a little bit of that blue kind of duotoning effect to our image. With the amber and the bronze, we've kind of left these in there for a little bit more modern take on a sepia tone look for your images, because I know that look is still very popular. It's not something that really fits our style. We shoot for more of the modern colors, which are more of the blues in kind of the black and whites, but it's there in case you want it. So let's flip back to Azure. We're gonna leave it right here. And now let's go ahead and go through our different settings. Actually, you know what? Before we do that, let's just drop in a little burn here. I'm gonna go with a 0.5. We're gonna drag it from the bottom left up right to the bottom of our dress. And I'm following kind of the direction of lighting in the mirror up here, or in the window up there. And now from the top, I'm just gonna pull down just a bit right to the edge of the wall right here, just to kind of subtly pull in a little bit of this light, and just to bring a little bit more attention right to the center of the image. Not a huge adjustment, but I like these kind of fine-tuning adjustments. It makes me happy. All right, let's go through all the develop settings now. We can start from the top. We have exposure 1.25. We didn't need to make any temperature tint adjustments. It was very close the way it was, and we're black and white, so we're good there. We've raised contrast. Why? Because again, this is a black and white image. We're pulling down our highlights and our whites. We're leaving shadows and blacks where it's at, and we're clipping our highlights and our blacks away from the image. So to get that punch, we need to add some contrast back, and that's why we're adding back contrast here. Now, going down to our curve, again, with this vintage punch curve, we are clipping highlights. We're boosting contrast in the mid-tone highlights, and then kind of pulling it down the whites. This is really more whites than highlights, I should say whites. Then in the shadows, we're pulling it down in the mid-tone shadows to create a little bit extra contrast, and then pulling up the blacks to decrease the black midpoint, or to decrease the blacks basically in the image. It essentially allows us to clip some of the blacks and create a fade when it drops in those deep blacks. If we switch this now, you're gonna see that we actually have a little bit of color toning here. So we have a little bit of reds being boosted, we have a little bit of greens, and then we have tweaked our blues. And this is what's giving us that subtle azure or that subtle blue toning to that curve. Now, as always, we could always choose to add another special effects color on top of this, but I really don't feel that's necessary. I like this subtle look. And so with the BCAS format, this time we're good with just a B and a C. We just need a base and a curve. There's no rule that you have to use a base, curve, an adjustment, and a special effects. Sometimes you use a base and you're where you want to be, so just leave it there. Now we're here with clarity at -10. I love that because it has a little bit of a softening effect overall. Let's switch back to RGB here and let's keep going down. We don't need any split toning here. We can zoom in and check out our detail. We have 70 on our sharpening amount, and everything looks pretty solid. I'm gonna leave that little bit of grain that's in there because I feel like it's very filmic. It has a great vibe to it. I'm not gonna do any noise reduction here. Going down, we have zeroed out lens vignetting. Again, we're kind of going with a fade here, so we want that natural lens vignetting. If you don't though, you can always just pull it back to say 30, and you get the even edge to edge tone there. So let's see what we like better. I'm kind of stuck in between. I kind of like it with the even and with the vignetting. I'm going to leave it with a little bit with vignetting just to pull in that natural kind of vignette and bring our eyes right into the center. I think it has a really nice look. But both ways are they're very good both ways. It's really up to your artistic discretion, like so many things. We're not doing grain in this one. We're going to save our black and white filmic grain effects for the next tutorial. So that's it for this one. We went over all the settings. Let's take a look at the before and the after. So here's the before image. We selected one base. We modified one curve to add a little bit more blues into it. We have this beautiful black and white conversion. All right, so great job everybody, and I'll see you all in the next video.